Come on, child, take me by my hand.
10 groups, 40 years of music, voices that should have filled stadiums, and names that should have been household.
Now you wanna try to fake me, but friends of yours are friends of mine. So don't
You've heard their songs at the cookout, at the wedding reception, in the car on a Friday night when someone's playlist was just right. But here's the thing, most people still couldn't tell you who made those songs. This is the underground, and these are the groups they left behind, starting at number 10. Number 10, Loose Ends. Think about the last time a British group took over American R&B, not pop, not rock, R&B. The chart where Detroit, Memphis, Chicago, and Philadelphia had been fighting over territory for decades. Now imagine a trio from London walking in and going straight to number 1. 1980, South London guitarist and vocalist Carl McIntosh, singer Jane Eugene, and classically trained keyboardist Steve Nicol, who had studied at the London Guildhall School of Music, start performing together as Loose End. Singular. They signed to Virgin Records in 1981. They changed the name to Loose Ends in 1983. And by 1984, they've got an American deal with MCA, but nobody in the UK is paying attention. You got me hanging on the string now. BBC Radio 1 wouldn't play them. The logic was simple. If you're not already in the top 20, we won't help you get there. But here's what happened. In 1985, they released Hanging on a String, Contemplating, built around an 808 drum machine, a male-female vocal tension, and a Philadelphia producer named Nick Martinelli. And it doesn't just chart. You got me hanging on the string now. It makes history as the first single by a British group to top the US R&B chart. Not the first Black British group, the first British group. Period. You probably heard that record and felt it before you understood it. The groove on Hanging on a String gets into your bones before it reaches your brain. And if you were catching the Quiet Storm on late night radio in 1985, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That 808 pulse. You never told me you were waiting. Jane Eugene's voice sitting right on top of Carl McIntosh's, like they'd been doing this their whole lives, which by 1985 they had. And the 808 they used, Carl McIntosh has talked about this. It wasn't even the plan. It was added last. The beat came after the song. Sometimes the most important decision is the one you make at the end. Back in England, BBC Radio 1 still wouldn't touch them. Even after they went to number 1 in America, McIntosh said those same people hated it. Sometimes the industry in your own backyard is the last place to recognize what you've built. Slow Down hits number 1 in 1986. Watching You reaches number 2 in 1988. But by 1990, Creative Differences fracture the original trio. Jane Eugene and Steve Nicol leave due to personal differences. Carl carries the name forward. And the album that followed, Look How Long, has never gotten the credit it deserves. One writer called it an unheralded masterwork. They weren't wrong. Loose Ends didn't just make music. They proved that the soul sound doesn't have a zip code, that what you build, if it's real enough, will find its people, even if it has to cross an ocean to do it. If you've ever heard Hanging on a String at exactly the right moment, you know that feeling doesn't care where it came from. You got me hanging on the string now. Number 9. Force MDs. Before New Jack Swing had a name, before it had a formula, a sound, a movement, there was a group on Staten Island doing something nobody else had figured out yet. Blending doo-wop harmonies with hip-hop beats, mixing the barbershop corner with the block party, and somehow making it feel like the most natural thing in the world. "1981 Staten Island, New York, brothers Stevie D, Antoine TCD, and Rodney Khalil Lundy, their uncle Jesse Lee Daniels, and friends Trisco Pearson and Charles Mercury Nelson start performing as the Force MDs, MD standing for musical diversity. And they mean it. They're out here singing on street corners, on the Staten Island ferry, in Greenwich Village for tips, real roots in the pavement, earn every note you sing stuff. By 1984, Tommy Boy Records signs them, and then 1985 happens. A film called Crush Groove, the hip-hop blockbuster starring Run DMC, Sheila E., and a young LL Cool J in his first film appearance, features the Force MDs and a ballad called Tender Love, written and produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. And it doesn't just get played, it becomes one of those songs, the type that lives in a specific place in your chest and never fully leaves. Tender Love peaks at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stays on the chart for 19 weeks. If you slow dance with someone important to you in 1985 at a school dance, a house party, anywhere, you probably didn't need anyone to tell you who made that song. You already knew it. Alicia Keys covered it. Usher covered it. Marcus Houston covered it. That's how a song becomes more than a song. When other artists keep going back to it decades later, here's what a lot of people don't know. Tender Love was one of the tracks that helped Jam and Terry Lewis win a Grammy Award for Producer of the Year. The same production team that would later build Janet Jackson's Control. That made Diamonds and Pearls for Prince. And it all runs through a group from Staten Island who used to sing on the ferry for pocket change. In 1987, they score their first #1 R&B hit with Love is a House. But by the late 80s, things start sliding. Then tragedy arrives and doesn't stop knocking. Charles Mercury Nelson dies in 1995. Antoine TCD Lundy dies in 1998. DJ Dr. Rock in 1996. 3 members in 3 years. Jesse Lee Daniels passes in 2022. For the people who built this music, gone. And yet Tender Love still plays, still makes people slow their breathing down when it comes on. President Obama listed the Force MDs among artists on his Air Force One iPod playlist. I'll let that land for a second. The group that sang on the Staten Island ferry for tips ended up on Air Force One. That's not a footnote, that's a full story. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, Troop. There's a group from Pasadena, California whose name is actually an acronym. That alone tells you something. These four men found each other, formed a group signed to Capitol Records, and in 1992 dropped a debut album that hits number 16 on the R&B chart. Their first single, Here We Go Again. It features samples of Chuck D's voice from the Public Enemy song, Bring the Noise, the bass line from Michael Jackson's I Can't Help It off the Wall, and the hand clap beat from The Humpty Dance by Digital Underground. Now, that Michael Jackson bass line is one of those things that once you know it, you can't unhear it. And the fact that Portrait built a whole new song around it and it still felt completely original, that's craftsmanship. They took pieces of three different legends and turned them into something that sounded entirely their own. Some of y'all are nodding right now. You know exactly which song this is. Here We Go Again peaks at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. It hits number 3 on R&B. And this song is so embedded in the era that Portrait appears on an episode of Family Matters performing it at Steve Urkel's school prom. You're hearing them on your radio and seeing them at Urkel's dance. That is how inside the culture they were. But here's where the story gets quiet. Their second album, All That Matters, drops in 1995. And despite I Can Call You and a cover of the Bee Gees' How Deep Is Your Love, the album doesn't match the debut's impact, and Portrait essentially disappears from American music by the mid-90s. While releasing additional material only in Japan, where a dedicated audience kept the love alive. There's something quietly heartbreaking about that. Japan was listening, keeping their catalog in print. Meanwhile, back home, Portrait had become one of those names that lives in the answer to what was that song, not what was that group, just the song. The group got lost somewhere in the gap between the answer and the credit. And honestly, Here We Go Again might be the most underrated opening statement of the entire decade. One album, one major moment, gone before anyone really had the chance to say, wait, slow down, we need more of this. You probably already know which side you're on. Number 6, Deja. Before they were Deja, they were Aura. Before they were Aura, they were part of Slave, one of the most deeply funky, deeply underappreciated groups in Ohio music history.
So now you check this out. You know I've heard that line a million.
And by the time Kurt Jones and Starliana Young finally land on the name that would define them, they had already lived through several musical lifetimes. Kurt Jones and Starliana Young had already built real credibility as core members of Aura, who scored a top 10 R&B hit with Make Up Your Mind in 1981. They're building something real, but by the mid-'80s, legal disputes over the Aura name tear the group apart. Jones and Young are left holding the music without the identity. So they rebuild. They sign to Virgin Records. They become Deja. And in 1987, their debut album, Sirius produces the single You and Me Tonight. It reaches number 2 on the R&B charts. Produced by Montemoire of the time. The same time that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis came from. The same Minneapolis circle that was quietly reshaping what R&B sounded like. And suddenly this Ohio duo who'd spent years being someone else, fighting legal battles over the right to even use the name they'd built, is sitting just below #1 on the R&B chart with a song that feels like a candlelit room at 2 a.m. If you've ever been in a relationship where neither person wants the night to end, where you keep stretching every last minute of being together, You and Me Tonight is that feeling translated directly into music.
Wait a minute. Before you left the last time, you never gave me a chance to tell you how I felt.
Starliana's voice on that track has a quality that doesn't sound manufactured. It sounds lived in. It sounds like someone who had earned the right to sing exactly that. But here's the other layer. After the Serious album, Starliana Young leaves Deja for a solo career, and Kurt Jones keeps the name going with a new vocalist, Misty Day. Their second album, Made to Be Together, comes out in 1989 with the title track produced by a young Teddy Riley, who was just beginning to build the architecture of what would become New Jack Swing. Kurt Jones heard what was coming before most people had a name for it, but the momentum never fully rebuilt after the lineup change. Deja faded quietly. And if you ask most R&B historians about the Slave to Aura to Deja lineage, you get a blank look. The full arc of what those artists built across 3 different names through legal battles and breakups and genre shifts has never been told the way it deserved. What I keep coming back to is this. Kurt Jones and Starliana Young created something beautiful across multiple incarnations and never got to arrive anywhere comfortable.
Who will appreciate my love a whole lot more than you could.
They kept building and rebuilding. And if you've ever started over more than once because the alternative was giving up, you know exactly how much that costs. Number 5, Men at Large.
Take your time. We would be together.
2 teenagers from Cleveland walk into a nightclub they're probably too young to be in. They open their mouths, and the person watching from across the room is about to change their entire lives.
'Cause I can't help sometimes calling.
David Tolliver and Jason Champion form Men at Large with strong support and creative input from fellow Clevelander Gerald Levert.
My life just ain't the same. Since you went away.
Gerald, who already has Casanova, who is already a name, hears them singing and sees it immediately. He takes them to Sylvia Rohn at Atlantic Records, gets them signed, and Men at Large releases their debut album in 1992.
To cry out when you need us.
2 big men, big voices, big enough to fill every inch of whatever room they walked into. So Alone hits the R&B top 5, and here's what I want you to know about that song. David Tolliver wrote it about his mother, who had recently passed away. He wasn't performing grief, he was inside it. And if you've ever lost someone, if you've ever stood at that specific terrible intersection of grief and love with nowhere left to put it, then So Alone reached you somewhere that regular ballads don't reach, because the voice carrying that song had actually been to that place. You can hear it. You always can. Use Me reaches number 9 R&B. Let's Talk About It hits the top 10 off their second album. For a stretch, Men at Large is exactly what their name suggested. Larger than the space around them. And that's a rare thing, a sound that big that still feels intimate when it reaches you.
And it's not the same.
But the name also carried something else. Both David and Jason were heavy-set men in a music industry that wanted its R&B artists to look a certain way. They wore that truth out loud, not defensively.
This is so
with a quiet confidence that said, "The voice is what matters." Hear that first. And to their audience and the one that actually showed up, that honesty was part of the love. By the late 90s, the albums weren't moving the way they had. Jason Champion eventually moved into gospel, where his voice found a new congregation. David Tolliver kept making music. Smaller stages, less attention, still the same voice. But here's what stays. The people who actually love this music don't remember you by your chart run. They remember the moment a song reached them in a way they weren't prepared for. And for a lot of people who were carrying grief, who were carrying loss, so alone was that moment. That doesn't go away.
You never miss a good friend till it comes.
Number 4, the Rude Boys. Here's a question. What do a group of 4 guys from Cleveland and the King of the Blues have in common?
Never met a girl in my life.
The answer is Larry Marcus, guitarist, keyboardist, songwriter, and one of the 4 founding members of the Rude Boys.
You don't have to say how much you care for.
Larry Marcus was a cousin of B.B. King, and somehow, some way, that connection never made it into the conversation when people talked about this group.
Say how much you love me, girl. Because
Joe Little III, Edward Buddy Banks, Larry Marcus, and Melvin Cephas are singing in a local Cleveland club in the late 1980s when Gerald Levert walks in.
you don't have to say a word.
Gerald hears something that makes him stop. He presents them to Sylvia Roane at Atlantic Records, gets them signed, and Gerald produces their debut himself. His name, his fingerprints, his belief, all over Rude Awakening in 1990. Written All Over Your Face drops, and I mean drops. That single features Gerald himself on the track. It rides the chart for 31 weeks, goes to number 1 R&B, peaks at number 16 on the pop chart. Wins the 1991 Billboard Music Award for R&B Single of the Year. For one specific stretch of 1991, if you were anywhere near an R&B radio station, any city, any market, you heard that song multiple times, daily. Are You Lonely for Me? Hits number 1 R&B as well. 2 number 1s from the debut album. And the chemistry between Joe Little's baritone and Buddy Banks's tenor is the kind that sounds like 2 people having the actual conversation of the song rather than just singing through it. That's not technique. That's something you can't manufacture. Here's the shadow over this story, though, and it doesn't live. Founding member Larry Marcus passed away in October 2016. Edward Buddy Banks died in December 2020. Their mentor, Gerald Levert, died in 2006 at 40 years old. 3 of the most central people to the Rude Boys story, gone. And the music they made together lives on playlists that don't always include their name. The Rude Boys were inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame in 2019. The remaining members reunited to perform at Gerald Levert's funeral, which is the kind of full circle that doesn't need any narration. You just sit with it. What gets me about this story is loyalty. Gerald Levert didn't have to go to bat for 4 guys in a Cleveland club. He chose to, and the music they made together is the proof of what happens when someone with power decides to use it for something other than themselves. Number 3, Levert. Imagine growing up with one of the most beloved voices in soul music history in your house, not on the radio, in your house, at the dinner table, in the studio down the hall.
And I want you to be my wife.
That was Gerald and Sean Levert's life. Their father was Eddie Levert, lead singer of the OJs, the man behind Backstabbers and For the Love of Money. And Eddie, at first, he heard his sons working on music and wasn't impressed until he actually heard them sing.
Casanova.
Then he took them into the studio himself, Shaker Heights, Ohio, 1983. Gerald Levert, his brother Sean, and their childhood friend, Mark Gordon, formed Levert while they're still teenagers. They're playing clubs around Ohio. Their first single reaches number 70 on R&B, modest, but enough to catch Atlantic Records' attention. Their debut album, I Get Hot, comes out. People immediately make the comparison to Eddie, and they're not wrong. Gerald's voice is almost identical to his father's, except it wasn't just imitation, it was evolution. Eddie Levert sang with power and classic soul drama. Gerald sang like someone sitting right next to you, telling you something true, something personal. And in 1987, that voice finds Casanova, number 1 R&B, number 5 pop, gold certified. And just like that, Levert wasn't just Eddie's sons anymore.
What you mean to me, stay, babe.
Just Coolin', featuring Heavy D in 1989 and another number 1. The group's own biography describes it as the first R&B group song to feature a rapper. And that combination, smooth harmony meeting hip-hop energy in the same space, is essentially a blueprint for where black music was about to go. Levert was doing it before the decade had a name for it. But Gerald wasn't just performing, he was building. Through their production company, Travail Productions, Gerald and Mark Gordon signed the Rude Boys. They signed Men at Large. They wrote for the OJs, Anita Baker, and Stephanie Mills.
Baby, baby, baby. And when I told you.
Gerald Levert, still in his 20s, was running an entire corner of the R&B industry out of Cleveland without a headline, without the credit that went with it, and then the personal story turns devastating.
Just like you in my life. So let me
Gerald died on November 10th, 2006 at the age of 40, an accidental overdose of prescription medications. 16 months later, Sean Levert died at 39 while in jail for unpaid child support.
wanna be with you. Listen, baby.
He was denied his prescription medication and deteriorated from withdrawal. He never came home. Both sons of Eddie Levert, gone before they reached 40.
You ain't never been friends. Can't you see?
Mark Gordon, the last surviving original member, has kept the Levert name and legacy alive. And Eddie Levert still performs OJ's music with the weight of both sons around him.
On my knees for you, babe. You see?
That's a grief I don't think we talk about enough when we talk about this family and this music. Casanova still hits at parties. Just Coolin' still sounds 20 years ahead of its time.
Every time I wanna see.
But the full scope of what Gerald Levert built as a performer, a producer, a mentor, a son hasn't been honored the way it should be. That's what this channel is here to change.
Girl, I'm an average guy. You seem to know just how I really.
Number 2, Mint Condition.
Do your thoughts of rejection.
There's one city in America that has produced more essential R&B music than it ever gets credit for.
Desire waiting to be.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, birthplace of Prince, home of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the city where the Time wrote the rules for a whole decade.
Please don't deny the truth.
And in the early 1990s, out of a performing arts program at a St. Paul high school, came 6 musicians who became one of the last great live R&B bands of the 20th century. Stockley Williams, Homer Odell, Larry Waddle, Jeff Allen, Carrie Lewis, Rick Kinchin, all of them actual musicians, instruments in hand. Not a vocal group assembled by a label, a band that grew up playing together. In 1989, they play a gig at First Avenue, the legendary Minneapolis club Prince made famous in Purple Rain. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis are there. By the end of the night, Mint Condition has a deal with Perspective Records. 1991. Their single, Breaking My Heart, Pretty Brown Eyes, hits the R&B chart. Stays on that chart for 34 weeks, reaches number 3 R&B. Number 6, Pop, goes gold. And here's what I keep coming back to when I hear that song. It sounds handmade in an era when New Jack Swing was becoming increasingly a production exercise, beats and samples and studio architecture. Mint Condition was in there playing every note themselves. And you can feel the difference. There's a warmth in it that a program track doesn't carry. You Send Me Swingin' reaches number 2 on R&B in 1993. What Kind of Man Would I Be stays on the chart for 41 weeks in 1996. If you're with me, you're secure. Those are not flash in the pan numbers. That's a band with staying power. A band that Prince evidently agreed with. When Prince was ready to go back on tour, he chose Mint Condition to come with him for his Welcome to America tour. Prince chose Mint Condition. If you know how Prince felt about musicianship, you understand what that endorsement means. Here's the moment that still gets me. Keyboardist Carrie Lewis eventually left Mint Condition. You might know his name from somewhere else. Carrie Lewis married Tony Braxton. One of the members of Mint Condition went on to marry one of the most iconic R&B voices of the same decade. The music world is smaller and more connected than it looks from the outside. Mint Condition eventually released on their own independent label and hit number 1 on the independent album charts. No major label, no promotional machine, just the music and the audience that never stopped showing up. They were nominated for a Grammy in 2017. What Mint Condition represents on this list isn't just great music, it's a refusal. A refusal to outsource the sound, a refusal to become a product instead of a band. In 30 years of R&B evolution, through drum machines and samples and digital everything, that kind of commitment is rarer than it should be. Number 1, the Deele. Everything on this list has been leading here because this last group isn't just a hidden gem from the 80s. This is the most important untold story in all of R&B when it comes to where the sound came from. If I could be with you, only. Let me ask you something. TLC, Tony Braxton, Usher, Outkast, Bobby Brown, Karen White, Boys 2, Men. Any idea what connects all of them? What single origin point runs through all of that music? The answer is a 6-person group from Cincinnati, Ohio that never got the fame their talent deserved. 1981 Cincinnati, drummer Antonio L. L.A. Reid starts pulling together local musicians, Kevin K.O. Robertson, Darnell D. Bristol, Carlos Satin Green, and Stanley Stick Burke, and then a guitarist and vocalist from Indianapolis named Kenneth Edmonds, who you know as Babyface, joins later that year. They call themselves the Deele, spelled D-E-E-L-E, because as L.A. once explained, whatever life put in front of them, they had to deal with it. The spelling just made them different. They signed to Dick Griffey's Solar Records. In 1983, Body Talk reaches number 3 on the R&B chart. Their debut album, Street Beat, hits the charts. They're building. But behind the scenes, while the group is touring and recording, something else is happening quietly. L.A., Reid, and Babyface are discovering they can write hits for other people too. Rock Steady for the Whispers, Girlfriend for Pebbles. The machinery of what would become an empire is running quietly inside a 6-piece band that most people today couldn't name. 1987, Eyes of a Stranger comes out, and on that album is a ballad called Two Occasions. Here's a detail I didn't believe the first time I read it. Babyface was not supposed to sing that song. It was co-written by Babyface, but another vocalist was scheduled to sing the lead. That vocalist didn't show up to the studio, so Babyface sang it himself, almost as a placeholder, and it became the group's biggest hit, top 10 pop. And the song that Mariah Carey referenced in her 2005 #1 hit, We Belong Together, nearly 20 years later. And here's the other piece. Babyface has said that on that album, the label essentially only wanted him to sing one song, Two Occasions. He was already more famous as a writer than as a vocalist in his own group. Think about that. While the Deele was charting, while the album was going gold, the creative engine behind the whole thing was already being pulled somewhere else. By 1989, L.A., Reid, and Babyface leave the group to found LaFace Records out of Atlanta. TLC's debut, Toni Braxton's debut, Usher's debut, Outkast, Goody Mob, the label that built a decade. And it all started in a Cincinnati rehearsal room when nobody was watching. The remaining members tried to continue. A 1993 album without Babyface and L.A. didn't chart. The group that had quietly given the world 2 of its most powerful music executives closed its doors without ceremony. But then, in March 2016, at a BET Honor celebration for L.A. Reid, the full original lineup performed together for the first time in nearly 30 years. Babyface, L.A. Reid, Carlos Green, Darnell Bristol, Kevin Robertson, Stanley Burke, all of them on one stage. And remember, number 8, Troop, their third #1 R&B hit was a cover of Sweet November. Written by Babyface, originally recorded by the Deele. The group at number 8 on this list made a career-defining hit from a song by the group at number 1. They didn't even know they were in the same story. Here's what I want you to sit with. The music that defined the 90s, that LaFace sound, that thing TLC and Toni Braxton and Usher built their entire careers on, didn't come from nowhere. It came from a rehearsal room in Cincinnati, Ohio, where 6 musicians were working it out together before anyone was paying attention.